Hey Optimancers, Chris here. In today's video I'm going to be analyzing the Genie Pact for Warlocks. I've been going through all the content for Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and in the past couple videos I've been discussing Warlocks. And in this video I'll be completing my look at the new Warlock options. In this case, I've saved the best for last. If you like the content on this channel and would like to further support what I do, I'm going to be posting a link to my Patreon page in the video description. My patrons enjoy early ad-free releases of these videos, and my top-level patrons can join me for a casual game of D&D every month. I also like to recognize my top-level patrons monthly, and today I would like to thank Comfy Baphomet, Douglas Reynolds, Dank Train, Dash Panther, Dave Peters, David F., Dewey Cheatham and Howe, Don, and Ed Iverson. Thank you all so much for your continued support. Let's get started. So a Genie Patron isn't just your standard run-of-the-mill Genie, but it's instead a member of the Genie nobility, a ruler of a vast fief on an elemental plane. Genie types in D&D are tied to a specific element, so you will choose from 4 options. A Dao for Earth, and I don't know if I'm saying that right. Is it Dao or Dao? If I say Dao, I'll probably end up having some kind of copyright claim, so I'm going to call it Dao. Jin for Air, Afridi for Fire, and Merid for Water. This decision is going to affect your spell options, as well as provide a specific type of damage boost to your attacks. So first, let's look at the Genie Pact expanded spell options. There's quite a bit to go over here as we have 4 different lists. Remember, with Warlocks, you don't know these spells automatically, but they're just an expanded spell list that gives you extra options for your known spells. Now on this chart you're going to see 5 columns, and that's because the first column is available to all 4 options. So let's go through that first. From the base Genie spell list we see a lot of overly circumstantial spells, like Detect Evil and Good, Create Food and Water, and Creation. In each case, I wouldn't be selecting these unless I was looking for some extra spell options. In the case of Phantasmal Killer, I wouldn't even consider this spell. It's a notoriously weak spell option for the level. Now, Phantasmal Force can be a pretty good spell that targets a weak save. As with most illusions, you should either know how your DM handles illusions, or maybe ask them before grabbing this. And then you have Wish. So if you are getting up to 17th level in Warlock, this is huge, as Wish is the best spell in the game. However, most campaigns never reach the level where this is going to come into play. If you're planning to multiclass, it's even less likely. Now, the Dao spells include a great list, and in my opinion, the best of the 4. Sanctuary is a good first level spell option. It uses a bonus action, but not your concentration. It doesn't scale, so I wouldn't hang on to it, as these kinds of spells aren't great when our pack magic beefs up, but at lower levels, it's a good choice. Spike Growth is a great second level spell, especially in a party with a lot of forced movement options, and we may very likely have multiple forced movement options of our own. Wall of Stone is a good 5th level spell. It's not the best wall spell, but for a class that doesn't get wall spells, this is a pretty big addition. Moving on to the Djinn, Thunderwave is a decent area of effect option at low level, and it's normally something Warlocks aren't good at, so I might grab that and switch it out later. Greater Invisibility is a decent buff spell I might consider, probably better than the Warlock Shadow of Moyle spell. The other spells here are pretty circumstantial, but there's no terrible spells on this list. Next we look at the Afridi. Now if you want area of effect damage spells, this is the choice. Burning Hands isn't a great area of effect, but it's better than Arms of Hadar, which is the only normal Warlock option for level 1 if you want to do area of effect damage. Scorching Ray I consider pretty redundant with what a Warlock can already do, though if you are level 3 and you want to do the most damage possible to a single target, this is going to outdamage your Eldritch Blast for a round if you think that's worth your pack slot. And if you already have your Hex spell up, it does pair well with that. Fireball is a great 3rd level spell option for a Warlock. Definitely a candidate for switching out when you get to level 7 though. And Fire Shield is a pretty good 4th level spell, and it's the only non-blasting spell on this list. Fire Shield also doesn't use concentration, and is a spell I would consider keeping on my list at higher levels. Flame Strike is not a good blast for this level, and I would recommend giving this a miss even if blasting is your focus. And that brings us to the merit spells. Fog Cloud is decent utility, if somewhat circumstantial. If you don't know how this spell works in D&D, I have a video on Fog Cloud. I'll link it in the video description. Blur is a pure defensive option, and in that regards, it's okay. Sleet Storm is a really good control spell for the level, and I would definitely consider grabbing this at level 5 or maybe level 6. Control Water is pretty circumstantial, but in the right setting, it could be useful. And Cone of Cold is a so-so blast spell. It does as much damage as you're going to get for this kind of spell at this level, but just be aware that cone spells can be difficult to place effectively, even though the area is pretty large. If you are looking for a 5th level blast spell option, I might consider Synaptic Static instead. Much better range, easier to place, hits a weaker saving throw, and has a rider attached as well. In summary, I think Dow get the best list here. Though both Afridi and Merid are decent options based on what kind of spells you're looking for, I would consider the Djinn to have the weakest options here. The subclass feature at first level is called Genie's Vessel, and although the Fathomless Warlock gets 2 first level features, I'll point out that this is really 2 features combined under one name. Before we get into the features, you have to choose your vessel. This is like Aladdin's lamp, except instead of holding a genie, it holds a warlock. Naturally, the oil lamp is one option, but you can choose a bottle, a piece of jewelry with a compartment, an urn, or an ID of your own. The only requirement is it's a tiny object and it has a compartment that you can shrink into. Whatever you choose, you can use it as a spellcasting focus, and there's 2 additional ways you can use it. For either of these to work, you have to be touching the vessel. The first is Bottled Respite, and this is the ability to actually enter your magic lamp or vessel. This requires one action, at which point you vanish from where you were and enter the lamp. Again, choose the vessel you want. I'm just going to refer to it as a lamp for this video. So inside the lamp, you have a 20-foot radius living area. It remains a comfortable temperature inside. Although you can't see outside, you can hear, so party members outside can still speak to you, though you have no method to speak back. You can stay in your lamp for a number of hours equal to twice your proficiency bonus, so at first level this means this is an option for a short rest. By level 9 you could alternatively take a long rest here. You can leave the vessel at any time as a bonus action, and if the lamp is destroyed, you appear immediately. Any objects in the lamp stay there until you carry them out. Now you can only enter your lamp once per long rest. It is going to have an armor class equal to your spell DC, hit points equal to your warlock level plus your proficiency bonus, and if you lose it or it's destroyed, it's easy enough to replace a 1-hour ceremony after any rest, and you get a new one. So right off, this is really good. First off, this can be used as a relatively safe short rest area. Assuming potential enemies don't know to destroy the lamp, or even if they find it, you should be safe, although there's always the possibility they're going to take it. Secondly, this might be a way you could escape a very warm or cold environment. Traveling in very warm or cold conditions can bring about exhaustion. As for the impact of a few hours in comfortable temperatures, that's going to be up to your DM, though it's likely going to provide some benefit. Thirdly, and I think maybe the most important, at least at lower levels, this is a really roomy storage area. I mean comparable to the size of a demi-plane spell, which is an 8th level spell sometimes used just for storage. You can carry impressive quantities of equipment or treasure around with you no problem by storing them in the lamp, though you're only going to be able to access them once per long rest. Of course, you definitely don't want your vessel to be destroyed if it's holding a bunch of great stuff, though that's true of a bag of holding too. The other feature of your Genie's Vessel is called Genie's Wrath. This allows you to do additional damage once per turn with any attack you do equal to your proficiency bonus. This adds to your Eldritch Blast, a weapon attack, or any other kind of attack you do on your turn as long as it requires an attack roll. The extra damage depends on what type you selected. If you chose Dao, you do bludgeoning. If you choose Jinn, it's thunder. If you choose Afridi, it's fire. If you choose Merit, it's cold. Now the big thing here is if you chose Dao, that means the attack you do is adding bludgeoning damage so it now qualifies for the Crusher feat. The Crusher feat is a pretty good feat. It's a half feat, and although you can't add to Charisma, you can add to Constitution, which is always okay. This choice would grant you two benefits. First, when you score a critical hit and add your bludgeoning damage, all other attacks against that creature are going to have advantage at the end of your next turn. More importantly, you'll be able to move the creature you hit 5 feet in the direction of your choice, provided that creature is not more than one size larger than you. So let's assume you're combining this with Eldritch Blast. This means you have 2 chances to land this after level 5, and eventually 4 chances at level 17. Remember that Dao is already the choice that worked well with Forest Movement through Spike Growth. Now I mentioned this briefly in my Tasha's Feat video, but I'll mention it again, that technically you can also choose to move the creature upwards. And if you do so, depending on your positioning, if you have Repelling Blast, you may be able to continue moving the creature diagonally upwards with your Eldritch Blast, and that would cause it to land, take falling damage, and fall prone. This is one of those combos where you check with your DM first. However, regardless of your selection type, this is straight out additional damage each turn, making Genie a good option if you want to do the most damage possible with your Eldritch Blast. So level 1 gives us a great deal of goodies for the Genie Patron. Extra damage, an extra dimensional resting space, extra dimensional storing area, and potentially excellent combination options. At 6th level we get Elemental Gift. Again, this is really multiple features. First, we get damage resistance that matches the type we're adding to attacks. As always, I'm glad to have a damage resistance, though this is something we should probably keep in mind when we plan our characters. For example, I might be inclined to combine something like a Freedy with some kind of conceptually linked race like a Fire Genasi. But this is actually going to create a redundant fire resistance feature. Now, you can always check with your DM if they'll provide you some other benefit instead, but as written, you would just lose out. Secondly, as a bonus action, you will get Fly with Hover with a speed of 30 feet for 10 minutes. This is a great feature, and we can use this a number of times equal to our proficiency bonus per long rest. So level 6 again delivers. The fly speed is super useful, and damage resistance is always welcome. Then at 10th level, we get Sanctuary Vessel. This allows you to bring extra creatures into your lamp. Remember that level 9 was the magic level where we had enough time to take a long rest inside the vessel. So now the entire party can. We can choose up to 5 creatures to join us, so this is going to be a relatively safe and comfortable long rest for the whole party every day. Now given that Leomund's Tiny Hut is a thing, there's a possibility this isn't a big deal anymore. But not all parties have that spell. Also, our tiny lamp should be relatively easy to put somewhere where it won't attract attention. Well, a Leomund's Tiny Hut doesn't have that feature. Secondly, if you choose to do a short rest instead, the duration of that short rest need only be 10 minutes. Also, everyone gets a bonus equal to your proficiency modifier to hit points recovered if they spent hit dice as part of that short rest. So the value of our level 10 ability really depends. Depending on the difficulty of finding opportunities to rest safely, this could be a really big benefit, or just okay. Finally, we get our 14th level ability, and this feature is called Limited Wish. As an action, we can get the effect of any one spell of 6th level or lower with a 1 action casting time. This spell can be from any spell list, and we don't need to provide any requirements of the spell, including costly components. When we use this feature, we can't use it again until we finish a D4 and long rests. This one is the best subclass feature any Warlock gets. This one's massive. Now we might use this to cast a great spell we didn't have access to, something like Wall of Force for example. Maybe a Circle of Power or a Globe of Invulnerability if we're going against spellcasters. Maybe a circumstantially useful spell like Control Water or Control Winds or True Sight when that kind of moment comes up. If we get caught in something like a Wall of Force, having a Disintegrate, for example, that we could access when we need it could be huge. Spells like Heal are normally not available to Warlocks and remain great spells even at higher levels. So at the very, very least, this is access to a second 6th level spell slot, usable every few days with a comprehensive spell list available. For me, the versatility here is the huge draw. But keep in mind that this is also just another high-level spell we can cast. This is a really amazing feature. So, in summary, this subclass is fantastic. We're combining excellent features at level 1 with more excellent features at level 6, then a potentially good ability at level 10, and a fantastic level 14 ability. This is a subclass that really delivers and keeps on delivering. Now, if you're just planning to dip Warlock, Hexblade is still probably the best dip for Warlock. But if you're planning to go with Warlock for the long haul, I think Genie is probably the best choice overall. So Warlocks made out very well in Tasha's. We have 2 subclasses, and both of them are worth considering depending on your campaign, and the Genie Patron is likely good for any campaign. We also get a solid pack choice, not necessarily better than the other packs, but still a decent choice, and we get a bunch of new invocation options, and none of them were bad options. So from Warlocks, I'm going to be moving on to Fighters. And we have some new optional class features and 2 new subclasses to look over. And as it happens, Fighters did fairly well in Tasha's as well. So hopefully you'll join me for that. And until then, I'll just sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks everyone, and I'll talk to you soon.